Welcome to the Gifts Differing podcast. I'm Host Albion, and today we've got the great Silas in the studio, who is big on Aristotelian philosophy, as well as a Christian guest, Sebastien, who believes we can bridge faith and reason. And finally, we have Elisia from Episode 1, who is curious about the big questions around existence. Welcome, everyone. This is going to be a fascinating conversation.
Thank you for having me, Albion. I'm here to explore the nature of the universe, its causes, and how it all fits together.
It's a pleasure to be here, Albion.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast once more, Albion. As we discussed prior to the podcast, I think what's in store for today is going to be quite something.
So, guys, we're here to discuss the greatest question of all. Why does anything exist at all? How did something come out of nothing? And how can we understand that?
Yeah, I've always wondered about that. I'm not fully sure where I stand, but I'm open to exploring it. The whole idea of the first cause argument, or the cosmological argument, is fascinating to me, but I'm a little skeptical too. It seems like a pretty big claim to say that there must be a creator. I'd love to hear both of your takes on it.
Right, so we're diving into the big stuff today. Let's kick it off with you, Silas. You've got the whole philosophy thing nailed down. What's the deal with the first cause argument? How does that fit into your understanding of the universe?
Yes. The first cause argument. In my view, everything that exists has a cause. Nothing can come from nothing, right? But there must be a point where the chain of causes starts. This starting point is the unmoved mover in Aristotelian terms. It's not like other things in the universe that change or move, but it causes movement without itself being moved. Think of it like the prime source of all motion and change in the cosmos, something that exists necessarily and must exist in order for everything else to exist. That's the first cause.
So you're saying there's this unmoved mover that, in a way, kick-started everything else, but doesn't get affected by it. Is that the basic gist?
Exactly. Everything else in the universe is contingent. If everything is contingent on a prior cause, then there must be a cause that is not contingent on anything else. That's why the first cause exists by necessity. Otherwise, you face an infinite regress, an endless chain of causes with no ultimate foundation, so the first cause has to exist for everything else to exist. It's the ultimate explanation for why there's something rather than nothing.
That's a good starting point, Silas. But let me expand on it. When I talk about the first cause argument, I build on that idea, but I also incorporate my understanding of God's role in all of this. You see, I argue that if everything in the universe is contingent, then there would be a time when nothing existed at all. And if that were the case, we'd have no reason to expect the current state of things to exist. So there must be something that exists necessarily, something that doesn't rely on anything else for its existence.
Okay, so you're saying there must be something out there that just is. It doesn't depend on anything else.
Yes, exactly. I argue that this necessary being is what we call God. It's the source of all causes, but itself has no cause. The very fact that the universe exists, that we exist, points to a cause that exists beyond the system of contingent things, a cause that must be, and thus is eternal.
Okay, but here's where I'm a bit hung up. I can follow the logic of everything has a cause, but the leap to saying that this cause is necessarily a creator, that feels like a bigger jump. Is the first cause really a divine being, or could it just be something else? Maybe a fundamental principle of nature, like the laws of physics. Could it just be something that's impersonal, rather than a conscious creator?
That's an excellent question, Elisia. The way I see it, first cause doesn't need to be personal in the sense we typically think of a god. It's a principle of order. It doesn't make choices or act in the way people do. It simply is the reason that everything else exists. For me, it's more about the why of existence rather than any idea of divine personality.
I understand your hesitation, Elisia, but for me, the first cause isn't just an impersonal principle. It's a personal being. The reason is that only a personal being, with intellect and will, can bring about everything else with intention. Impersonal forces, like the laws of nature, cannot explain the existence of the universe as a whole. They don't possess the power to start the chain of causes in the first place. So there must be a personal, intelligent cause, a God, who brought everything into being and sustains it.
So, you're saying that the first cause has a purpose. It wasn't just a random explosion of energy or some kind of cosmic accident.
Exactly. The first cause must have purpose, and that purpose is part of the nature of God. This isn't about randomness. If everything in the universe were caused by something purely accidental, there would be no reason for it to be orderly, structured, or intelligible. But we see order and purpose in the universe, from the smallest particles to the largest galaxies. That points to a reason, a cause that is intelligent and purposeful.
I'm with you on the idea that there's some kind of order or structure to the universe that seems unlikely to come from random chance. But the idea that this order points to a personal, intentional being, how can we know that? Couldn't it be an impersonal force that just happens to bring about structure without intention? Like the laws of physics guiding the way things unfold, but not as a personal creator.
Ah, I see where you're coming from. The laws of nature, like gravity or motion, are regularities in the universe. They're consistent, but they don't explain why there's something in the first place. The first cause is the foundation of those laws. Without a first cause, the laws themselves wouldn't exist.
Yes, and I'd add that the very fact the universe has a purposeful structure, and that everything is moving toward an end, suggests design. It's not just that things are ordered, but that they're ordered toward a particular goal, an ultimate fulfillment. This goal-oriented nature of the universe implies a purposeful mind behind it.
So you're saying the universe is kind of like a giant machine, but there's a conscious mind behind it all.
Yes, that's one way of looking at it. The universe is structured in a way that suggests not only order but intentionality, a mind behind the machine.
All right, I'm beginning to see where you're coming from. I still have my reservations about jumping from first cause to a personal God, but I can understand the argument for a necessary being, something that explains why everything exists rather than nothing. What's tough for me is the idea of ascribing specific characteristics, like intelligence or will, to that cause.
That's where I'd argue that, yes, a personal being must be the source, because only a personal being with will and intellect could account for both the existence and the order of everything. Without that personal cause, we're left with randomness, which doesn't fit the observable reality of the universe.
So, the universe isn't just an accident. There's intention behind it all. That's the key point, I think.
Okay, I'm definitely more open to that idea. There's just a lot to unpack here. I'm still not 100% convinced, but I'm more intrigued than I was before. I'll need to think this through some more.
I love that. That is what philosophy is all about, questioning everything and digging deeper. We're just scratching the surface here. We've laid down some pretty heavy stuff today, Elisia, and I know you've got that INTP mind working overtime, trying to piece it all together. Have you given the cosmological argument some more thought as to where you stand after hearing Silas and Sebastien lay it out?
It's been a lot to process. Honestly, I've been sitting here, thinking through everything they've said, and I'm starting to see it a little differently. I came into this podcast with a lot of skepticism, because the idea of a creator, someone who's personal and intelligent, just felt like too much of a leap. But I'm starting to think the leap might not be as big as I thought.
Yeah, I think when you really start looking at the logical implications of the argument, it forces you to confront certain realities. It's kind of mind-blowing. What's shifted for you?
Well, when Silas talked about the first cause, it clicked in a way I wasn't expecting. He said that everything in the universe is contingent, that it could have been different or not existed at all. And for something to exist now, there had to be something that always existed to set everything into motion. That makes sense, logically. But what's been hitting me is the realization that if everything is contingent, then this necessary being, this first cause, can't just be a law of nature or some impersonal force. It needs to be something that exists by necessity, and that's where the shift happens for me. If everything in the universe is dependent, It needs a reason for why it exists and why it is this way, why it's structured and ordered.
Exactly, Elisia. You see, what the universe depends on can't itself depend on anything else. There must be something that exists necessarily and doesn't need anything else to exist. That's the key to understanding the first cause. If you accept that everything in the universe has a cause, you can't keep pushing the question of the origin down the line forever. Eventually, you meet something that exists without a cause, something that has to exist for everything else to exist.
Yeah, and when Sebastien brought in the idea of that necessary being personal, I'll admit, I resisted that idea at first. I wasn't ready to just throw in the towel and say, oh, it must be a god. But as I sit here thinking about it, the more I lean into the idea that it's not just about a random principle or impersonal force. There's an order to things, and that order feels like it has intention behind it.
I think that's the thing that hit me the hardest when I first started thinking about this. It's the purpose behind everything. There's so much order in chaos. Just look at the laws of physics. They aren't random. There's a reason everything holds together. And that reason, that structure, just feels like it's pointing to something intentional.
Exactly. Albion. That's what's been getting to me. There's this intrinsic, almost mathematical order to everything. The fact that the universe is so predictable in so many ways doesn't seem like something that could happen without any direction or purpose. And I think that's what made me rethink the necessity of a personal cause. It's not just about having a cause. It's about having a cause that knows what it's doing, that actually directs the system.
Well said, Elisia. The cosmos behaves in such a way that it appears to be directed towards certain ends. The seasons, the growth of plants, the way organisms interact, all of it seems purposeful, like it's driven by an intelligence.
So, it sounds like, Elisia, you're getting to a point where you're open to the idea of a creator or intelligence behind the whole thing, but more in a rational, logical way rather than just a leap of faith.
Yes, exactly. It's more like the idea of a creator isn't a leap of faith anymore. It's a logical conclusion based on the nature of existence itself. The idea of a personal cause behind everything, the fact that the universe has purpose and order, feels like the only reasonable explanation now. And maybe I can't fully grasp the extent of that intelligence or what exactly it means to say God is behind it all, but I'm coming to see that it makes sense.
That's the beauty of philosophy and reason, Elisia. You don't have to grasp every detail or understand every facet to see the coherence in the argument. Once you understand that a first cause is necessary, the rest follows.
And that, Elisia, is the power of reason. It brings you to a point where the idea of a personal, intelligent creator is not just plausible, it's the best explanation for the reality we experience.
I guess, in the end, the more I reflect on the structure of the universe, the more I realize that rejecting the idea of a personal cause, a creator, feels like rejecting the only logical explanation that fits all the evidence. The universe does seem to be moving towards something. It's structured, it's ordered, and it's purposeful, and all that seems to require a mind behind it all. So I accept the idea of a creator, not because I have to, but because the reasoning makes sense.
What a transformation, Elisia. It's not every day you see someone go from skeptical to, well, this shift in perspective. I think it's awesome that you were able to take the time to process it and come to a reasoned conclusion. Well, that's a wrap for today, folks. If you're out there questioning everything like Elisia was, just know you're not alone. This is a journey we're all on, trying to figure out what's real and why we're here. Thanks again to Silas and Sebastien for dropping the knowledge on us today, and to Elisia for keeping an open mind. See you next time.